supporting students in their reading habits and their growth. It does get a little bit more complicated as students get older because they get more complicated and their work they do gets more complicated as well. And also, if you have a student who is actually really great with phonics, but you want to make sure that they are comprehending what they read and going deeper than the surface level, these are some things you can do as well. So this isn't just for students who feel are falling behind comprehension, but something to do to keep students on top of their comprehension, because it just keeps getting a little bit harder and harder every year they're in school. We just expect a little bit more and expect them to dive deeper into their understanding. So lots of practice, repetition, and study habits are going to help. And some of these things we may have all heard 100 times before, but it's true. It'll be true the 101st time that I say it. So read every day. And this doesn't mean that a student should be reading something that has to be at their grade level. It should be at their level. So some students their reading skills, their own personal reading skills would be lower than their grade level skills. And that's what they should be reading at when they're reading for themselves. You know, they don't really get a choice when they're in school and they are, forced to read at a higher level, and it may take a lot of support and time. And even a bit of a struggle. So to practice reading, you start at your own level. So I like to compare this to exercising. If you want to be, or being on a sports team, if you want to play soccer, you practice every day. You don't just show up for the game. So same for reading, you read every day. You don't just show up for the test, the reading test or the science test. You, run your laps on your own. So start with a level that is appropriate for the child, and work up to 30 minutes if 30 minutes a day seems like a lot for them. And what is an appropriate level? They should read and understand about 90% of the text. And choose something they're interested in. A lot of students are like, I don't like reading. Well, this is where going to the library, the way they set out displays, and especially for those readers who they're beyond picture books and ready for chapter books, there are so many good options out there. A trip to the library can be great, and also less pressure than going to like a bookstore where you have to buy them. So they can check a whole bunch out, see which ones they like. If they don't like them, bring them back, find something else. Let them find something they enjoy. There's so many choices now. Practice is important. I can't emphasize the practice part. It's true for everything else. A lot of students don't seem that it's true for reading because it's hard. iReady. So I'm old-fashioned. I love that students get their hands on books and papers, but the iReady activities, 15 minutes a day, they really focus on the skill that the student needs. So meanwhile, we offer iReady. We can offer it to any student who needs it, any family that feels like they want their student to use it. It builds both phonic and comprehension skills, and it is a targeted reading skill. And one thing students like about it is that has lots of interactive activities, and there's little cartoon characters. And I like it because it allows the student to work on their own time and work very independently. Oh, let me try that again. Okay. Audiobooks. So you have your child, and even if they're reading great phonetically, you want to build their comprehension. Or if you have a student in an older grade, in 6th grade, but their reading level is, maybe a lower level, a 2nd grade or a 3rd grade level, they still need that vocabulary. And we do rely on reading to get the vocabulary. We can get it through audiobooks. Audiobooks are such a great way to be exposed to information without having to read it. Again, ideally, so in an ideal world, you could get the audiobook and the text and have the student listen and follow along. Even if they're in, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, everybody loves hearing a story, especially when it's read to them and read by like a professional actor. So ideally, they would follow along with their eyes and read as it's being read to them. But that's the ideal situation. Just, 15 minutes, 20 minutes at a time. I know lives are busy, listening it to in the car, in the waiting rooms, waiting for, a sibling soccer practice to end. It really is great to expose them to literature and vocabulary, especially at their grade level. So a student doesn't have to be able to physically read something at their grade level to understand it if they can hear it. And also, if you do it like as a family or do it as a group, then you can talk about it. That's really helpful as well. Okay, background knowledge. We assume a lot about what students should and shouldn't know. But everyone's background knowledge, everyone's knowledge of a topic is different. And as teachers and when we use curriculum writers will assume a student has some background knowledge or something that they should have learned. Like if you're in 5th grade, of course you learned about the Oregon Trail in 4th grade. Well, maybe not, or maybe they did, maybe they forgot, maybe, who knows? Maybe they came from a different country. Maybe they are speaking a different language. So we have to stop assuming that students have the background knowledge of what they're learning. So even just simple things like if a student is learning about the Battle of Gettysburg, don't even ask, where is Gettysburg? Just say, what is Gettysburg? Because especially in, 4th, 5th, 6th grade and higher, there's usually the text will jump right in, especially school text will just jump right in and say, okay, the Battle of Gettysburg happened at this, this date, and just gets into the details of it, but there's not necessarily any way to double check if the student has any idea that Gettysburg is a place. So we shouldn't assume anything. So it always helps to take the time and just ask really simple questions like, well, what is Gettysburg? And this is a great time to use our technology and get on the internet and work with a student to find images, find maps. That really helps. Language is natural, visuals are natural, pictures seem more natural to our brain to understand. So if you can get a picture, an image, a map for a student to attach this information to, especially since a lot of the information starts to become a little less concrete when they're older, it really is helpful. So thank you, Lauren, for finding this. So background knowledge, if knowledge is critical, we are all adults here. And I know when I read this, I had to read it a couple of times to see what are they talking about. So this is how students can feel if they're introduced to a new subject. And this is not a matter of being, smart or not smart or well-read. It's just, if you don't know, if you haven't been exposed to something, if you don't know, you don't know, and that's not a bad thing. But as teachers and as the adults in these students' lives, we need to check in with them and make sure that we're giving them the background knowledge and filling in the gaps that's missing for them. So I just want to read this out loud just to show how if you don't have background knowledge, it sounds like nonsense. Australia failed to fully capitalize on the second wicket stand of 182 between Smith and Finch as Michael Clark's men were stunted by the off breaks. Oh my goodness, of Rashidarn, Ashwin, and the curious collective failure against back of a length bowling. So I don't know what that means. Does it mean I'm a bad reader? Does it mean I'm a bad student? Maybe, but no. So we have to do that with our children as well, is make sure they have the background knowledge and the vocabulary to be able to then process information like this by themselves. Okay. So this, I know for Nohea, this is not something that she has to worry about just yet, but for a recording for older students, when they do really have to rely on text to learn their curriculum, I teach students not to just read the text once and be done with it, or read it once and feel bad if they don't remember all the information. That's not how our brains work. That's kind of not how the world works. If I don't understand something in my job, I can go and look it up. I can go ask questions. I can go check in with Lauren. The reason I do understand so many things as my job is because I've been doing it for many, many years. So we have to give students the grace of letting them know that you don't just have to read something once and then be expected to know it. And this can be difficult for students, especially who have done really well in younger grades. And I mean younger, like it could be K-3, or sometimes this hits students when they get to college, school has been kind of easy for them. They read it once, they get it, they can do a test, they're great, but there's going to be a point, whether it's 3rd grade or 8th grade or high school or college, where just reading a text isn't going to be enough. So I practice this with my students, especially the older students who have to rely on a lot of text to understand what they're doing. Is I tell them, preview the text, just skim it, just look it over. Get your brain ready. What am I getting myself into? Even when it comes down to how many pages is this? So read the title. Is there any pictures to look at? Read the captions. Are there any bold or underlined or italic words that are going to be important? Should I write those down? Basically, what am I getting myself into? And what is this going to be about? So we think about, all right, if I'm reading about, the life cycle of a tree, what pictures can I see? How long is this going to be? What do I already know? So then I tell students, do a deep read. This is when you read the whole text. This is when you stop, you take notes. You write down things you don't understand. If you have a physical copy that you can write on, this is where you highlight. This is where you take notes in the margins. And this is the time to also stop and build background knowledge. This is the stop if you come across the word wicket, like those in the last paragraph, you stop and go, what is that? And this is where you get an adult to help you, or this is when you go look up a video or a map or photo, or even just the dictionary to help you understand the topic. And this is also when you ask teacher for clarification. And step 2.5 is sleep on it. Don't do this all in one day. This actually allows the brain to put this into the long-term memory. And so after you've skimmed it, you've taken your notes, you've tried to answer all the questions you have about it, the next day, you just read it all like you would just at a natural pace, at a comfortable pace. And that's kind of putting it all together, because before you skimmed it, and then the second time you read it, you kind of read it in parts and stopped and took notes. And then the third time puts it all together. All right. Note taking. It's very helpful. It is so helpful. Again, we kind of expect students to look at something either on a page, on a screen, and it just goes into our brain, and we think of our brain separate from our body. But even when you understand a topic really well, taking notes will be better or help you better understand it because you are actively engaging. We are physical people. So writing on a piece of paper will help you remember information, will help you understand it more. You're not passive, and it can help you organize and identify relationships between ideas. And also you can refer back to them instead of feeling like you have to go all the way back to the beginning of the module and click through, or all the way back to the beginning of a chapter. And I have a link here for the Cornell note-taking system, but that's just one way to take notes. And I'm going to skip that just due to time. All right, this is going to make me sound like an old school marm, but here I am. Again, this may seem like really obvious, but I don't know how many times I've worked with students and they're literally laying in their bed. And while some students can do very well, and people in general, like reading a novel in bed, or looking at the phone, or even doing some sort of activity laying down. When you are actively learning and actively trying to understand something, you don't need your body in a relaxing mode, because you're telling your body it's time to relax. It's time to go to sleep. This is not important. And it really is part of a pattern of, as we've all learned, working from home or having students from home, when you have a workspace, your brain and your body, I sit up straight in my chair and I go to work, and you get a certain mindset. Same thing for students. They can go to their desk or their table, even a little side table. That is a spot to work. That's where your brain and your body work together to get into work mode. So, because when you're laying in your bed or laying on the floor in a beanbag, that's relaxed mode. And that really does affect focus, concentration, and the ability to understand, because again, your brain and your body, they work together. Having a daily schedule, attend all Zoom meetings. Again, it's like a school marm here, but also, students should advocate for themselves, that they can reach out to their students or their teachers, because we really do want to hear from you. And sometimes I feel like students, they get tagged as not being a strong reader, or having low understanding, or not good comprehension, because they haven't taken their time to do these simple things. They don't participate, or they don't attend the Zoom meetings. They don't reach out to their teachers. Sometimes they just even have a hard time with the website, and they miss out on a lot. And then from the teacher side, it seems like they just don't understand, when it may be more of a tech issue or a study habits issue. So it does work together. So I know this is not necessarily reading comprehension, but students need to have strong reading comprehension to complete any assignments or any subject matter. And part of that is having these really good study habits.